Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Cold Steel Knives AD-10. First off, though, I want to thank my buddy David. He actually donated this knife to the channel in exchange for when I'm done. It goes into a part of the charitable giveaway thing. That's a wonderful thing because it gives me the time to spend the time with it. And you know what? It gives a good opportunity for charities to get some help. So that's really generous of you. Thank you so much for that, David. Next thing, let's do a little bit of a size comparison. This is not a small knife. Here it is against your Spyderco Paramilitary 2, your Ontario Rat number 2, and your Spyderco Delica. What we can see here is that in terms of blade length, this guy is pretty damn big. This is a big, beefy knife. The other thing to highlight here is the width on it. This is a thick freaking knife here. This is a big one. Thick with 2 capital damn C's. This is a big knife. Then the other comparison I actually want to make, because I'll make this comparison a little bit later, is against your Spyderco Shaman. So you can see here that in terms of sharpened blade length, they are not so far apart. But in terms of size, Shaman feels a little bit subjectively smaller. The next thing on this guy, this is a cold steel knife. I've talked about cold steel a fair amount before on the channel. And this is actually a production version of the Andrew Demko custom knife, the AD-10. Andrew Demko is a main designer for cold steel, and he has, for many years, made a series of production custom knives, the AD-15 with the scorpion lock style thing, reviewed already. And then there's this little guy here with the triad lock that's designed to really be a beefy thing. And then Cold Steel has finally come out with production versions of both the AD-10 and the AD-15. So that's what we got going on here. These are fully authorized and whatnot. So there you go. Let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting big old freaking knife right here. So on the good side, to start with, this guy is completely ambidextrous. What I mean by that is it is a backlock style knife, which means that you can access the back just as well from either side. The clip is reversible. You can flop it around there. The thumb studs are both, there are thumb studs on both right and left side. This knife, you will have exactly the same experience as a righty or as a lefty. That is a beautiful thing for 10% of the population. And you know what? Those 10% often get the shaft in the knife world, so it's always nice to see them have an option here. Next thing, this guy is $180. Now, look, that's a chunk of change, but at the same time, this is kind of a unique little beast, and compared to the custom, this is about a tenth of the price, at least the ones that I was able to find online, so, you know what? Yeah, I got no real complaints with it. And part of the reason I have no real complaints with it is that the fit and finish on this guy is overall quite good. This is a well-made knife. There's really nothing I can point to here where it's just like, you really screwed this up. You did this dead wrong. Yeah, sure, there was some chamfering needed. We'll talk about that later, but by and large, this is actually very well made. And so $180 for S35VN, you know what? I got no real complaints here. It's absolutely fine, and I think it works out pretty well. Next thing, this guy is super durable. Now, is this something that actually matters to most people in their everyday lives? Absolutely not, no. And by the way, sorry, I've been sick, so you're going to hear my voice cracking like I'm going through freaking puberty again. Oh, welcome to my world. But anyways, this is a super durable knife. And I say that for a few reasons. Not only is it very beefy in its overall construction with full liners and all that, but it also has a very thick blade stock, but it also is using the Cold Steel Andrew Demko triad lock, which is, like I said, it is a backlock variant that is designed to eliminate a couple of little situations that could make a backlock fail. And this has a complete, a very secure lockup. It is 100%, this is a crazy knife in terms of its construction. This is a very, very beefy little folding knife. But the amazing thing about it is that it still cuts. They have still ground this, and actually that brings us into our next point here, which is that this is an S35VN blade that is pretty well done. If we look down here at the base of the blade, we can see that this is actually a relatively thin edge. Even though this guy has thick blade stock, it is relatively thin behind the edge. And so that makes this guy cut a lot better, especially in certain things that aren't going to bind. If you're cutting into closed cell foam or something like that, or an apple, you're going to want something with very thin blade stock, but this guy actually comes to a very thin edge, which is a great thing. I love the fact that they have made this a beefy knife, but they've maintained the amazing grinds, or at least grinds that are reminiscent of the amazing grinds that you get on the Demko Customs. I have a custom AD-15 review up on the channel, so check that out. It does thicken up a little bit at the tip, but at some level, that kind of makes sense, because if you're stabbing into things because you in a warehouse and attacking pig carcasses with your knives, because that's what you do with cold steel knives, then okay, you know what, that might make some sense. But anyways, I like the blade a lot. S35VN is a great steel, and it's ground really, really well for being as thick as the knife is, with a very deep hollow grind. Then finally, on the good side, this is a production version of a custom knife. This is something I love seeing, because custom knives are great. They have a lot of fun. There were good reasons why people enjoy custom knives. However, customs are very expensive. In fact, the custom AD-10, the ones I was able to find at the time of filming, are north of $1,000. They get very expensive very quickly. But this knife here is actually reasonably faithful to the custom. I looked down at this guy, and yeah, sure, there were some differences, but by and large, this looks pretty similar to the custom, and that's great. This is a reasonably faithful reproduction, and I feel like Demko has really done his best to make this feel like an AD-10. Some makers will kind of nerf their customs a little bit. They'll make them a little less impressive. They'll screw up some element of it just to avoid cannibalizing that. But this is just Demko saying, you know what? You want to support me and get a custom? Awesome. Do it. But here's a great production version for a much lower price that will tide you over. I love that. I love that so damn much. I respect completely that Andrew has just given the AD-15 and the AD-10 to Cold Steel to take a look here. I mean, I'm sure there was financial dealings. I sure hope so for Andrew's sake. But nevertheless, I love seeing these very nice production versions of very good custom knives at productive price points without any efforts made to artificially, make the production ones worse. This is great. And so to me, at least, that's what's good. This is a production version of a custom knife, which is amazing. The S35VN blade is great, and it's actually ground to cut, even with thick blade stock here. This is a crazy durable knife. If you are going to be jackassing around and stabbing your knife into boards and, chopping cowboy boots full of meat or whatever else they do at Cold Steel, this is a good choice for it. It has got good fit and finish for $180, and it is completely ambidextrous. On the great side, the ergonomics on this knife are amazing. They are very, very good. You have a clip which has its own issues. We'll talk about that later. But nevertheless, the clip is not super prominent. The contouring of this handle is big. And anytime you have a thicker knife, very often that can feel very good in the hand, especially with clever rounding. This is just really, really great in the hand. I really like the feeling of this. And in fact, for me, with my relatively small fingers, I can actually choke up a little bit for detail work if I want to. So, to me, what's great about this 100% are the ergonomics. It even works in a reverse grip if you're a ninja or something like that. So that is a beautiful thing, and that is the great to me. I love the ergonomics on this knife. On the bad side, first off, it's got this backspacer thing, which is fine, but it's weird. What I mean by that is that it's not flush. I mean, in the back here, it's flush, but then it sticks up a little bit here. And it's got these sharp edges on it, and I don't understand what they're doing here. Is this meant to be a glass breaker or something like that? Is that what we're doing here? It's not flush. It just, honestly, it feels like they installed the wrong backspacer. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, so there you go. Welcome to the bed. Next thing, there are sharp edges in a lot of places on this knife. One of them is this backspacer here. This is actually, I don't know if it'll cut you open sharp, but it's definitely sharp. Similarly, you've got a sharp edge right along here. Any place that they haven't, chamfered these guys explicitly is actually pretty sharp. The inside of the liners can be sharp. They really just need to, this knife needs a visit from the chamfering fairy. I mean, this edge is sharp, that's good, but the other ones don't need to be. And especially also in the inside of this screw here, I can see for a lefty that being a little bit frustrating. So that's not great. Next thing, this guy is freaking huge. This is a big knife. I can go ahead and show you blade length-wise, we're actually only a hair over 3.5. And by the way, and it depends on how you measure, you might come under 3.5 if you don't consider the area where the thumb studs are to be, I don't know. But look, it's either right under or right around or right over 3.5 inches, but it's a very large knife in the pocket here. If we compare this guy to the Spyderco PM2, which is another 3.5-inch knife, we can see that this guy is substantially larger. In the pocket, at the top of the pocket particularly, this is just big. It is a big, beefy knife, and it is also relatively heavy. Toss this little guy in the scale here. We have ourselves coming in at 6.86 ounces for 3.5 inches of blade. Not super impressive. We are damn near 2 ounces an inch there. That's not great. So I don't care for the hugeness or the heaviness of this guy, and it just felt a little bit funny for me to carry it around. Mind you, I'm not a big knife person. If you are, maybe that's going to be like, yeah, that's awesome, cool. And, if somebody's out of slicing range and you feel like using, you could throw this at him and probably, although thrown self-defense is, yeah. Anyways, so that's definitely a little bit of a situation. Then finally, on the bad side, this guy is a little scary to close one-handed. What I mean by that is, check this out. So normally on a backlock style knife, what I would do is something like this. On the Spyderco Delica, you can kind of shake the knife closed. Then your finger will contact this little unsharpened area on the blade. Then you can kind of switch it around and do one of these. On this guy, though, you've got this little area right here, which closes the, which basically, you've got this little hole drilled through. Apparently in the custom ones, you know, this is designed, or at least this might be apocryphal, but so that you can put something through there, and that'll prevent the blade from closing on the hand. I don't get it, but that's the explanation I've heard. But regardless, with this guy, if I try and do that, if I put my finger right here, what actually is happening is that by the time that that the triad lock is up there and seating, there's not enough space for my finger up here. And then if I put my finger down here, unless I've really got it tucked in low, what I'm more likely to do is hit this little corner of the area because they missed the sharpening choil just barely here. So I'm more likely to catch this little corner, and then I have to get my hand out of the way and close it the rest. In practice, this was a knife I ended up closing two-handed most of the time. That's not something that's terrible, but I would almost have liked to have seen a little bit more length in this sharpening choil here to make that a complete non-issue. That way, this is a, 100% of the time, one-handed closer. Not a big deal, but it's honestly something that's a little creepy. I would prefer them to fix that in the future. Then, so that to me is the bad, is that it's a little scary to close. It's huge, it's heavy. There are sharp edges in places that there shouldn't be. And it has a bit of a weird backspace. It's like a non-committal glass breaker or something. On the ugly front, I don't care for this clip at all. The clip is very low. You can see here that the ramp on this guy is very low, but it is also very, very stiff. I'll use this pry tool to try and get up under it. It is very, very, very stiff. You can get it into the pocket, you can get it out of the pocket, but it's just not super comfortable. If this were a knife I was going to carry in the long term, I'd probably rebend this clip, actually, in an effort to try and make it a little bit less aggro. And that would make it better, but I'm not a big fan of that whatsoever. It also is a very shallow carry. As you're carrying this guy, this much of the knife is going to be sticking out of your pocket. And given how damn big the knife is, that also means that the widest part of the knife is going to be at the top of the pocket here. Pardon me. So I would much prefer in practice to have a clip that was riding a little bit higher and a more subtle lanyard hole, and frankly a clip that was a little bit more akin to the very good clip that was on the AD-15, rather than this big flat monstrosity. Ergonomically, I get it, but in practice, not a big fan. So to me, that's the uglies. I just don't like this clip at all. It's too tight, it's too low, there's very little ramp. It's just not a great thing. So final conclusion, this is an interesting and weird knife. I love at some level that it is a thing. Like I've said, production versions of custom knives is one of the best things going on in the knife market right now, because it gives people an entry to the custom knife game, but it also gives an affordable or reasonably affordable way for somebody to try out something on the higher end. That's a beautiful thing. And Demko custom designs are really great, and seeing them made well by Cold Steel is really, really good too. So I love that this knife exists. I also think it is a good knife for a certain aesthetic. If you want something that is crazy overbuilt, that is durable, that is very safe in pretty much any situation, and will still cut, because that's a big thing. You need to have your overbuilt knives cut, damn it. But this works very well. I think it would be a fine choice for a number of people with specific requirements. Of course, though, you do pay a penalty for the overbuilding. The sharp edges here are a bit of a pain. The weight and the size can be a bigger pain. The clip is just not good. I really do hope that gets modified in future versions. And there is always the question of whether an extreme hard-use, durable folding knife makes any sense at all. Because chances are, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, this is the only knife that would be strong enough for this task that I have planned, use a fixed blade. The very best folding knife for hard use is a fixed blade knife. Seriously, there is no stronger lock than a contiguous sheet of metal. Just saying, people. Just saying. But even if you're interested in that, there are other good choices in the overbuilt world. I mean, the Cold Steel 4MAX is this, but colder and steelier. It is also substantially bigger, heavier, and more expensive. I don't know that I recommend the 4MAX, although I certainly respect it. But if you're looking at this and thinking, wow, that's a little bit pedestrian, I would like something a little bit more insane, the 4MAX will fit the bill entirely. If you want something that's a little bit more off the beaten path, a little bit more unusual, the AD-15 is hard to beat. It has a very similar aesthetic, and to me, it is a preferable knife. If you said to me, Nick, you have to carry a Cold Steel for the rest of your days, the AD-15 the size is a little tough for me, but still, the AD-15 would be my choice. It is a very, very good knife. This is also a good knife, but I like this one a little bit better. If you're looking just for a very beefy folding knife, honestly, Cold Steel's got you covered in a bunch of other ways. You get like the Code 4, that is the American Lawman. Guys, I can't freaking talk. Or even the Ultimate Hunter. Those are all very beefy triad locks, and they're all about $100 less, which is great. Then for me personally, the Spyderco Shaman is actually, it's about the same price for, well, everybody, but it has nicer ergonomics, it's smaller in the pocket, it has a locking mechanism that I very much prefer for daily life. These are aftermarket scales, by the way. But nevertheless, for me, if I'm looking for a beefier knife, this is my choice. And the ergos and the size and the weight just make this a better option for me. Pardon me. And for most people, though, honestly, something this big and this heavy just doesn't make a huge amount of sense. Unless you are seeing big and heavy cutting tasks in the future, I don't know that this is a knife that you're going to want. It is an aesthetic choice more than I think it is a functional choice. The thing is, though, if this is your aesthetic, this is a very nice choice. I think it's more reasonably sized and priced, frankly, than the Cold Steel 4 Max. It is more ergonomic than the Code 4 by a mile. It is a better cutter than the SR1, which is just super thick blade stock. It makes this guy look thin. And frankly, I think it is a very pure expression of Cold Steel's ethos of, you know what, we're going to put this knife in a vise and hang dead pigs off of it until it fails. That seems like something Cold Steel's going to do in a video at some point in time, and this is the perfect thing for it. They really do I mean, all joking aside, they specialize in knives that remain safe and strong in stupid situations, and oh my god, is this that in spades. So, final conclusion, would I ever carry an AD-10? Absolutely not. No, this knife makes 0 sense to me. I need this knife like a fish needs a bicycle. But do I respect the AD-10? Am I glad it was made? 100% yes. This is a very, very nice knife. And I think that if you are interested in giving the strange little beast that this guy is a try, you could absolutely consider giving this little guy a triad. Okay, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.